Hey y'all, it's me, your host, Coach Pilar Arthur Sneed. Thanks so much for joining me here for another episode of the Last 10th podcast. I am so excited today because we are going to talk about triathlons again. Today, I am here with the founder and executive director of Fund Her Try. Super excited to talk to Lynn Mattix, correct?
Yes, good
Okay,
job.
good. Yay! Super excited to talk to Lynn today. I could tell that we have simpatico energies, so I'm super excited to chat with you today, Lynn. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I am, I've not done very many podcasts, but I've now done more than one. So I'm feeling like a total famous person.
You're like, thank you very much. Welcome to my life. Hello.
Yeah, so I am very grateful for you having me.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure. So where I usually like to start with folks is I really love it when folks just tell me a little bit about them. So tell me a little bit about you, and you can share anything at all that you would like to share.
Okay, so as we said, my name is Lynn, and I am the founder and executive director of Fund Her Try. And what that means is when you can be both, it means that you don't get paid. Because if you're getting paid, you can't be both.
I understand.
So I am a triathlete. I have been doing triathlon for about 10 years. And my first triathlon was just an absolute train wreck. I mean, it was just a terrible, terrible experience, but also really fun,
Yes.
and maybe, it's a great story. And afterwards, it just kind of, I had this feeling of like, I could do better. And
Yes.
so I kept coming back over and over again. And so now, that's kind of a huge part of my identity. So I also am a wife, and I have two kiddos. So I have
Yes.
two teenage kids, and
Wow.
my husband is still he's still active duty in the military, but he'll be getting out soon. And by day, my profession is I'm an air traffic controller. So
Wow.
um, yeah, so I work completely outside of triathlon, but because
Wow.
I love triathlon so much, and because, with a military family, you move a lot. And so
Yes.
we haven't always been in a location where I could do air traffic control full time.
Mm.
So I became a personal trainer, I became a triathlon coach, and I started Fund Her Try, all in those windows where I wasn't working full time.
Mm.
And so yeah, so I'm kind of like by day, air traffic controller, and then by night triathlete.
Wow.
So, but
That's amazing.
oh, thank you. It's really like it kind of goes together. It sort of makes sense in the way that, like, I'm a very type A personality. I'm sort of all in. So yeah, so I had a really good experience doing triathlon and training for triathlon. And that's kind of like what led me into the other parts of it, where it was like, okay, maybe now I'll become a coach, and maybe now I'll, try to get other women involved in a more formal type setting.
Mhm.
So but yeah, I mean, I'm no different than anyone else. I'm trying to squeeze it all in, trying to squeeze
Yes.
out just as much as I can out of each day. So
That's right. I, listen, I completely understand. Before we are taping this show, I just finished my run. I did my strength work before hopping on, ran into the shower, was hoping that I wasn't going to come onto the show like sweating profusely, because you know how that is when you get out of the
oh,
shower.
yes, I know. I 100% know.
You're like, I basically took a shower because I really didn't want to sweat anymore, but you get out and you're just like,
You're
still.
still sweating. I'm the same. I did a bike ride and a strength workout, and then exactly the same situation. I was like, I'm going to be a literal mess when I get on this call. Maybe I just won't turn the video on, but I made it happen. We pulled it together.
We pulled it together. I'm like, this is great. I'm not like glistening. So
You look beautiful.
It's all good. And when I say glistening, like not glistening in a great way.
Right.
So totally get that. Totally get that.
Yes.
How in the world, right? Like, okay, so like I totally get military life. I get that. My husband was in the Navy.
Okay.
When I met him, he was sort of at the tail end of his, at the tail end of his career. But he was on nuclear submarines. So the first like 3 years or so that we were together, I think it was maybe 2.5, 3 years that we were together. He was literally underway like half of the time. So like a year and a half, he was just gone, didn't see him. So like I totally get that. And I just basically just said, I love the military, but I don't really think that this life is for me. Cause like every time you leave, big things happen.
Yeah, it's true. And
break.
And something always breaks. Yes, this is real. This is a real thing.
I remember that we were living in this place in Connecticut, and it was like the basement was I don't know how to describe it. They had like a leach field or something, like where all of the poop and everything went. So there was a pump that needed to pump all of this stuff, and that pump broke. And so I went to go down to and he had just went out underway like the day before. I remember going down to the basement, and there's little, floaties.
Oh,
basement. I'm just like, that's nice. That's nice. That's nice. So, so I admire, families that are stay together in the service. And I understand the lifestyle and understand how much even more you're trying to fit it all in. Right.
It's so interesting. It's equal parts, on any given day, you're leaning one way or the other. But for the most part, it's like equal parts awesome and awful because, there are so many things. Like my kids were born in Italy, for crying out loud. I'm like, that's amazing. Like that in and of itself is a really cool thing.
Yeah.
But then also we have periods in our life where their dad was gone for 6 months, so it's really I don't know, we have enjoyed most of the moments.
Yes.
And there's nothing can parallel the military like family.
That's right. That's right.
So good. It's right. So good
in all of the ways.
Yeah, it's like the triathlon community. It's similar to the triathlon community, I feel, because it's like we have this common thing. And so no matter what our walk of life, or where we came from, or no matter what, like we have this thing. And so it's very connecting. And I love it. So it's really kind of bittersweet because he's been in the military for, more than 20 years. And so leaving it is like so interesting. Little things like we got here and I said, I'm going to have to find a doctor. Like, I've never had to do that,
Right.
So, it's weird. And
it's a weird transition indeed.
It's an adjustment. Yes. But I think we're ready. I think we're ready now. And so, we're excited about it.
Indeed. So how in all of that did you become an air traffic controller?
So I was in the military too. So that's how we met. So I was active duty for about 9.5 years. And so I was an air traffic controller in the Air Force. And when our son was born, our second child, our son is the youngest, when he was born, it was kind of like this realization, but when he was on the way, there was a realization that one of us would always be gone. And we sort of said, that's not really what we want. And so I decided to go ahead and get out. So that's how I became an air traffic controller. The military trained me and luckily has provided that for me. So
my husband and I, we have a joke that we always say when watching TV, there's some person who's doing a job, submarines or air traffic controller or whatever, nuclear, bomb disseminator or something like this. We're like, and they're saying, all these things, turn the plane, left and go this way. And there's always somebody who does that job who's like, yeah, it's not like that. So you're that person.
Yes, that's true. Most people, when the general response when someone asks me what I do, usually I just say I work at the airport. Sure. And then, if they dig in, sure. I say I'm an air traffic controller, and they say, "Oh, do you do the flashlights?" Like this. And sometimes I just say, "Yeah." Because it's like, if we're just having a really brief exchange, there may not be time to go beyond that. But that's right. Everyone always says, "Oh, well, isn't that a super stressful job?" if they know what it is.
Yes.
My response to that is like, it absolutely can be, but it really depends a lot on where you work. Right. So, if you work at a slower airport or a smaller airport, it's actually not that stressful. So, sure. Luckily I'm at one that's like closer to the bottom of not stressful.
Sure. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I'm still sane.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I mean, I would imagine that there is a certain level of you are it in a similar way. Well, not really similar, but neurosurgeons are holding someone's brain literally in their hands. You're holding people's lives in your hands, guiding this plane into land. So yes, that's a certain level of stress that you don't want to make a mistake. There's not room for error. You must be Absolutely. Precise. But if you have a type A personality, which you said that you do, I feel confident that you are able to manage this.
Yes, thank you.
Pilar stamped and approved. So Lynn, in all of this, you mentioned that it was during these times when you were not able to work on a full-time basis that you decided that you would like to start these triathlon endeavors. But what I'd like to do is to go back to when you first decided that triathlons was like a thing you wanted to do. Like, when did that happen?
So when we were stationed in Oklahoma, and my husband, it was my husband's idea. He said, "Hey, there's going to be this triathlon, this sprint distance triathlon, coming up. I don't know how far in advance we even knew that it was happening, but I was like, oh yeah, sure. I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
Sure.
But I decided to, because I had no idea what I was getting myself into, naturally, I invited my best friend to come along with me.
Sure.
And so we did a relay. So she did the run, I did the swim and the bike. And yeah, like I said, it was an absolute train wreck. Like I forgot to put my goggles on my face when I dove in the water. So I couldn't see anything for the first few minutes, which was interesting. Prior to getting in the water, I chugged like a whole red Gatorade. I don't ever drink Gatorade. So I like almost threw up on myself during the swim. And then when I got out of the water, so have you ever done a triathlon?
I never have.
Okay. So when you get to the race site, you have the transition areas, right?
Yes. Yep.
And so when I racked my bike in transition, there were like 3 bikes. But then when I got out of the water, there were like 200 bikes. And so I had no idea where my bike was, because I didn't know that I needed to commit this to memory. So I proceeded to like run up and down the transition area for, I had the world's longest transition during that race. But yeah, so afterwards, it was kind of like I mentioned, I could definitely do better. I could do better.
Yes.
But it was really, really fun in the way that it was so hard. It was just like, and I didn't even do the whole thing. I didn't even do swim, bike, and run, but it was so hard, and there were so many moving parts. And so, yeah, it was just kind of like, I want to try this again. And that's kind of how it went. And that's kind of how it's still going. You know what I mean?
just want to keep it going and see if I can do better.
Yes, because literally every single race, I mean, I've been doing this sport for 10 years now, and I have like, I qualified for 70.3 worlds and got to go to a world championship race. And during that race, I didn't put one of my bibs in the right bag and like almost got disqualified. I mean,
Oh, wow.
so I think the the thing is that it keeps me coming back because I'm never going to master it, and I don't think
Yeah.
anyone truly ever does. So it's just sort of this like chipping away at how can I get better? How can I get faster? Those
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Yeah.
Um, but even though even though I know that I'm not perfect and that I'm still growing with each and every race and every even training session, um, when you do a race,
Mm.
it sort of is like makes you feel so like badass.
Of
It's
course.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it's all three. And I think because I was a runner first and
Hmm.
I did a lot of running, and running
Hmm.
made me feel so powerful. And
Yes.
then when I was I started doing triathlon, and doing all three was like just this incredible feeling. And I wanted other women to feel it. I
Yeah.
was like, you gotta try this. It's like a
Yes.
drug kind of.
Yeah, yes, yes. I'm still at the try the running drug part.
Yeah. Well, listen,
I haven't
it's a
gotten to
game.
the I haven't tried the triathlon drug yet.
Well,
We're getting there.
running is the gateway. Running is the gateway drug.
I
Just so
have
you
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. No doubt in my mind. I mean, I just had a conversation with my husband about all the things that I, would like to do. Just thinking about things, for in the spring. I'll be turning 50 in this fall. So I know, right? Crazy.
So
So
excited.
just thinking about, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? And he said something like, well, you have no limits, really. And I was just like, oh, are you talking about me?
Oh, what a good husband. That's exactly what he should be saying to you. I love it.
So, I have a couple of things I need to do before I can do a triathlon. The number one thing is learn to swim. That's the first thing because I don't know how
Yeah,
to swim.
yeah, that's important.
And the second one, which I say jokingly, which is that I have to get some butt pants because biking really hurts my butt.
Yes, I would agree that these are two prerequisites. You have to get butt pants, and for sure you need to learn to swim. But I mean, this is such a common thing. The swimming is the hardest part for so many people. I did not, I knew how to not drown
That's
before I
sure,
started doing triathlon, but I didn't
sure.
know how to like, someone was like, "Oh, what stroke do you do?" And I was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about. Like I swim. Is there something different than just swimming, But
Sure.
yes, I think a lot of us are kind of in that boat, as I say, I stole this from someone. I can't remember who I stole it from, but it's like adult onset swimming, right? Like
That's
we
exactly
learn as
right.
a grown up.
That's exactly right. That's exactly
Yeah.
right. I can doggy paddle, and that is about the extent of it, of what I can do. And
Well,
I wouldn't say I can keep myself from drowning, although I have swam in the open ocean, literally way too far away from the boat that I was supposed to be on, and freaked out. And then saw a
okay.
kid and was like, yo, you're going to have to help me get back because I'm definitely not going to be able to make it back there doggy paddling. But that's the extent of what I can do. Yeah.
Well, you could probably actually do a triathlon now because there's no rule for how you get from point A to point B. You just have to get there. So you could doggy paddle. It's not a problem.
There she is, the doggy paddling wonder. Anyway. So even though your first triathlon was sort of like similar to, folks doing their first marathon as it can be, you get out there and you're just like, oh my goodness, I had no idea it was going to be like this. A little bit of a challenge. You
Yeah.
decided that you wanted to come back and even start an organization to bring other women to the start line. of triathlons. So tell me a little bit more about Fund Her Tri.
Well, so Fund Her Tri is, I like to describe it as a labor of love
Mm,
because it, as I mentioned, I do not get paid. No one does.
mm,
We are, we're an actual 501c3 nonprofit organization because I've sort of felt like that was important for credibility,
sure.
which means that we have a board of directors, but literally the organization is just essentially all the day-to-day stuff I handle. And oftentimes don't handle very well. You know, I'm quite busy. So sometimes it's like gets pushed to the back burner, but
Sure.
we sort of work together to make it happen. And the each one of the women that's on the board, we all kind of had a similar introduction to triathlon and a similar experience where, just like me, they felt like they were underrepresented
Hmm.
because there weren't a lot of women on the start line.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it was super intimidating and expensive.
Hmm.
And then beyond that, the next part of it is that, like, also we did one and we loved it and felt like, it makes you feel like you're the most powerful thing. And so you want to keep doing it and you want to see other women doing it. But it's like hard to say, hey, come do this race with me when just the registration alone is, over $100. And then, oh, by the
Hmm.
way, you need a bike. And oh, by the way, you need,
A wetsuit.
a belt to wear in transition, all these different things.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's there's so much when it's 3 disciplines. I mean,
Yes,
running races have gotten exponentially more expensive
they
over the
have.
past 10
Absolutely.
years. So I
Absolutely.
mean, yeah, so I think the financial, we all sort of had the shared experience that it was hard to do triathlon, but we also really loved it and we wanted to share with other people. And
Hmm.
that was kind of that's our common sort of commonality between us. But when you're thinking about doing something, like starting any type of organization, I've learned over the years that it's better to sort of be really good at one or two things
Hmm.
versus trying to attack a whole bunch of things, because there are a lot of barriers to entry into the sport.
Hmm.
Swimming is obviously a huge one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there are a lot of barriers, but we kind of said, what's the one that we could most effectively tackle?
Hmm.
And have like a tangible, very action oriented thing that we could do. And money seemed like it was, like, next to swimming, money was the next biggest thing that was keeping women
Hmm.
out of the sport. So I think for women of color, representation is a huge thing that keeps them out of the sport.
Absolutely. Out of
Sure.
all sports at the amateur
Yes.
level, community recreational level.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But then additionally, it's like we have this added layer of, it's a huge financial commitment.
Mhm.
And it was all of our experience that myself and the other women on the board that, you know, this, for some reason, it's really hard for women to spend money on themselves.
Mm.
And so, and being able to justify it. And so that seemed to be a thing.
Mhm.
And yeah, we wanted to say, okay, well, we wanted to have a way to say, hey, if we invited a person to race or to do a triathlon,
Mhm.
how could we help them out? And paying for their first race, like the actual
Mhm.
race registration,
Mhm.
seemed to be a really a good way to start. And so
Absolutely.
that's kind of what we did. And so we basically just started raising money,
Mhm.
and we raised money. We do fundraising type things, but again, we all have a lot of things on our plate, so we
Sure.
don't do a lot of dedicated fundraising.
Sure.
But we've managed to partner with some different organizations and companies and whatnot that sometimes will help us raise money and get money,
Sure.
and we use that money to pay for women to do their first triathlon.
That's awesome.
And yes, and so one of the coolest parts of what we get to do is usually the women, well, so the way it works is, if you are a first time triathlete,
Mhm.
um, you go to our website and you apply for, we call it sponsorship.
Sure.
So it's a really short form. You apply for sponsorship. And as long as there is money the answer will always be yes. I mean, we're not
Sure.
turning anyone away.
Sure.
We want you to be a first timer.
Yes.
Um, you know, I'll say it out loud, even though it's a little scary, but we've even had some situations where we've had women that they actually weren't a first timer. They had done a triathlon before, but they were experiencing some financial hardship. And so
Sure.
we provided an assist for that as well. And
Sure.
so essentially the idea is to bring women to the start line, but also to keep them there. And so
Absolutely.
we don't have a lot of rules, and we sort of make the rules. So, you know, there's
You're
that too.
right, building the foundation and riding the bike at the same time, like, or
Yeah.
like kind of like that, which is,
Yeah.
as an organization, when you're first sort of growing, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's where people start, because you want people to have access to what it is that you're doing, and you don't
Yeah.
want to make rules that are going to say, well, nope, not you.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And so, you know, we've paid for, there's always a couple, I'm always like, when I have a spreadsheet, of course, so I'm always like one or two behind on our spreadsheet, but I think to date we've paid for 87 women to do their first race, so
That's awesome.
it's not a huge number,
That is a huge number. That's
but it is.
huge. To me, that's amazing.
Thank you. That's how it feels to us. And it's kind of like, we're really small and we don't, I'm always falling short on doing social media and doing, all the things that we should be doing to grow. We're
Sure,
always falling short in
sure.
these ways, but people learn about us and they apply for sponsorship, and we
Yes.
get to give women, the money to do their first race. And then usually we get to kind of hear their story. We
Yeah.
always get to hear a little bit of their story before,
Yes.
which is neat. And then sometimes we get to hear a little bit of their story afterwards. And so it's really a cool way. I mean, Jenny was such a great example
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
she was a sponsored athlete
Yeah.
and then invited someone else.
Yes.
And that's kind of like all we ask in return is please just keep inviting your friends so that we can keep bringing more women to the start line,
Absolutely.
to every start line.
Absolutely. I mean, and when you say 87 is not a lot, that's 87 more women who are at the start line than were there before.
Absolutely.
So
And
every
hopefully,
single person counts.
yes. And hopefully it will have that wonderful domino effect, of seeing, seeing someone that looks like me and like you. And then, someone else thinks, oh, maybe I could be there as well, So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think even though on a regular basis, I feel as if, we're never doing enough.
Mhm.
It feels good to do something.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Mhm. I love that. I love that. I personally, and having found you via social media and then seeing, and I actually um, was like scrolling through different people's profiles, and then I saw Fund Her Try, and I was like, huh, what's this? And then I found you, and I personally thought, well, wow, that's pretty inspiring. So I think that like we do as women, you are diminishing the power that you are having within the space of triathlon, sport, even running in general. Like I think that there is no limit to the impact that you are having, and you may not be seeing it, but it's there.
I appreciate that so much. I did another I did another podcast not that long ago, and when she told me, she said, I'm kind of seeing Fun Her Try everywhere. And I was like, you're what now?
You
Did you
say what?
say?
Say what now? You saw what? Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I'm not seeing it. I work here. I don't know.
It's so interesting because you're right. Like we do, downplay our impact, and we shouldn't do that. And I'm always telling people not to do that. But you're right. I think like every little so last year, I I'm it the last 18 months sort of feel like a bit of a blur,
I
but
know.
we did have, in 2020, we partnered with Vanessa Forrester for the Diversified Triathlon movement. And
Yes.
that was another thing that it was like, it was the best feeling ever, because we both said, you know, we want triathlon start lines to look like the world around us looks. We
Yes.
don't want it to be, you know, all white men. You know,
Yes.
this should not be a thing. And
That's right.
so, you know, it was like this opportunity to partner with her, and that partnership was a result of the triathlon community. Someone, you know, a woman that is really supportive of Fund Her Tri
Yes.
knew us both and
Yes.
saw what we were both doing and was like, hey, you guys should be doing something together, you know?
Yes. Yes.
And luckily introduced us,
Yeah.
and we were able to kind of use my like platform and her platform together, and we're able to bring diversity to the sport,
Mm-hmm.
and not just, you know, like working in the realm of bringing more women to the start line feels like we're working to equal the playing field between, you know, male and female, and
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing, but there's so much more to be done everywhere else. And so bringing, you know, when we partnered with her and it was like, okay, now we can bring some diversity, it's like it felt like, you know, that wonderful quote where they say, do what's, I'm not going to say it right, but it's like, do what sets your soul on fire.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
This is what it felt
Yep.
like. It was like, this is really good. This is what's putting
Yes.
good stuff into the world, you know?
Yes.
So, and I think you understand too, that sport is like, it's, it's something that not everyone has the privilege to do,
Mm-hmm.
but it should be something
Mm-hmm.
that everyone has the privilege to do. And so
Absolutely.
that's kind of the feeling.
Absolutely.
It's like,
Absolutely.
how can we do it? How can we bring it to everyone, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was having a discussion a little bit earlier today and just talking about some of the perceptions around women of color being in the running community, fat women being in the running community, just all of that, all of those things, and that it can be, when we talk about barriers, those things can be huge barriers to people just getting started and just getting out of the door. Because if you can't see that there are people who look like you, and I mean like look like you in all of the ways that we look, do
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
absolutely.
Then you can't, you literally cannot visualize yourself doing that thing. So it's so very important to have, you know, I think to have organizations that are working for that, individuals who are working for that, and who can see, like you said, that sports should be representative of people who are literally all around us. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, representation matters. It does matter.
Absolutely.
And so we have to, I think, unfortunately, it doesn't happen on accident.
That's
And
right.
we can't expect that it will just happen. Like it
That's
has to be
exactly right.
something that's worked towards, you know?
That's
And
exactly right.
so yeah, I my daughter is she likes to play football.
Oh,
And
okay.
so it's a whole thing now at
Yeah.
school where other girls are like, hey, so you play football, you know?
Yeah.
And she's talking about it and I'm like, babe, this is what I've been saying. Like representation matters, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, as a teenager now she's kind of seeing it and I'm like, oh, like if we could just get this, if we could
Yes.
get it happening at a younger
Yes.
you know, at a different level, at a
Yes.
younger level. And
Yes.
for girls and women of color and for anyone to
Yes.
say like,
Yes.
I want to get out there or I want to help someone else get out there, you know, like those
Absolutely.
things they're important things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, I do think that the younger generation, when I kind of look around, I feel like they're embodying a certain amount of confidence in the way in which they move about in the world that I never could have imagined at my, you know, at being like
Yeah.
16. Like I just never could have imagined it. And it's empowering to see young people who are like, hey, you know what? Like you said, I'm going to go play football. Hey, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm going to wear what I want to wear because that's what works for me.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
saying I don't accept these pronouns that you have given me. They're not for me. This is not for me. I love all of it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When she said to me, we were talking through some things the other day at my teenage daughter, and I said, "Oh, babe, like you're learning this stuff so much earlier than I learned it. Like
Mhm.
I was 25 years old when I figured out what you're figuring out right now,
Right.
like you're so lucky."
That's right. That's right. I was 50 years old when I started figuring out the things that I'm figuring out right now.
Yes, it's different.
Literally a lifetime of trying to figure things out. I mean, like literally a lifetime. So
I
yeah.
I think that that notion of being accepting of ourselves is kind of one of the things that triathlon sort
Mhm.
of gave me,
Mm.
because when I started training and I was doing all three, not doing any of the three very well, but I was doing them.
Sure.
I like had this, I I I started accepting and liking myself more than I had before. And that was so noticeable to me.
Hmm.
And so that's one of many. I like to say that I think triathlon heals, because I think, and
Hmm.
as running does as
I
well, like
say the same. Hmm.
we get these moments to ourselves that we would not otherwise get if we weren't out running or swimming or biking.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes, we need those moments to find a bit of clarity or a bit of
Hmm.
quiet, and it gives us something that we wouldn't have otherwise had. And I think those are the things that acceptance of myself, and the desire, not just willingness, but like
Hmm.
desire
Hmm.
to encourage other women. That was something that, as a teenager, I didn't know how to encourage another girl.
Hmm.
That's not something I grew up understanding the importance of.
Yeah.
But when I started doing triathlon, I was like, oh my gosh, I wanted to cheer them all on,
Yeah.
because their success was my success. And
Yes.
I think, yeah, these are some of the things that it was like, we, we need more women on the start line, not just because we need the start line to be more representative of the world around us, but also these women need this feeling of power.
Yes.
Like they need
Yes.
it. And when they
Yes.
get it, like amazing things will happen. So yeah, it's like this domino sort of effect in all directions.
Agreed. Agreed. I feel like the one of the organizations that's out in the world that's kind of working to help bring this eh, centering power, I guess you could call it, is Girls on the Run. Where
Yes.
they're really trying to help girls to sort of come into that power earlier, because it's been shown obviously that when girls get to a certain age, they start for societally in our Western society, somehow it's just they start diminishing
Yeah.
they're diminishing their power. And so Girls on the Run is really working towards, hey, look, girls, you've got this thing inside of you that is powerful and it
Yes.
deserves to be honored and let out. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I 100% agree. I love, so we did, when we were stationed in Korea, there was a young woman who essentially she had worked with Girls on the Run before. we
Mm.
couldn't do we couldn't actually do Girls on the Run in Korea, but we basically followed their lead, and we did
Sure.
a program like it in the
Yeah.
elementary school.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to participate, and it was one of the most wonderful things ever. And
Yeah.
we kept it going. Like the next year I helped out, and so that it would keep going, because military, like of course the girl that started it, she
Yeah.
left
She had to go.
CCS.
Yes.
So but then another girl took it over, and it was like, when you have the opportunity to see those young girls
Mhm.
um start the program
Mhm.
and be afraid to put their hand up or be
Mhm.
afraid to give an answer. And
Mhm.
then by the end of the program, you watch them be like, oh, I know, I know what to say. I know what the answers are. And
Yes.
see their confidence, like
Yes.
actually get to watch it grow.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
was just wonderful. It was so
Yeah.
amazing. And I think that's what, you know, physically challenging ourselves
Mhm.
affects our brains so
I
much.
agree. Well, I
And
agree with you
yeah,
100%.
so like
Mhm.
getting out for that run, for those girls or whatever it happens to be, it changes our thought patterns about
Mhm.
ourselves. And so I think this is so important in young girls.
Mhm.
But I think, for like you and me, we we needed to be retaught. And
We
so
did. We
and
did. We
I
did.
think, yeah,
We
I
did.
think it's
Yes.
I think it's important. Like we have to keep revisiting it for
Yes.
women who are not, not young, but then the young girls need it too. So
I
just for
agree.
all ages.
I agree. I agree. I love that that is what you were doing with Fund Your Try. I love that you're bringing that feeling of empowerment and really not just, as you said, bringing women to the start line, but also bringing women to themselves, really, right? To
Yeah.
find that thing. Because I say it probably once every time on the show. If you would have told me 6 years ago that I'd be having this conversation with you right now, that I'd have this in my background, right? You know what I'm saying? That I would be doing this.
Yeah.
You could not have convinced me that this would be the thing that I would be doing because I couldn't have imagined it. But one run happened and it literally changed my life.
Yes.
Changed my life. Couldn't have imagined it. I discovered stuff about myself that I didn't even know. I did not know I could do all these things.
Absolutely.
Had no idea. And I wouldn't want it any other way. I wish I'd found it sooner.
Yes, 100%. That's the thing. I'm like, I feel the same way. I wish I would have found it sooner. I wish that I would have started doing triathlon or running even
Yes.
when I was, before I was 30 years old.
Yes.
Like
That's insane.
I
Same.
think, you know,
Same. Same. Yeah.
but we
Same
do
thing.
have we do have a, our perspective because we started later. I think we have a profound appreciation
Mm,
for this, and that's what makes us
mm.
want to share it. And so I
Yes.
think that's a necessary thing too. I
That's
mean,
that's
if
exactly
it
right.
weren't for women like us, we're like, man, I wish I would have known. you
I
know
wish I would have known that all this activity, all this motion activity would have been like crack. I wish I would have known. I'm sorry, that's a terrible reference. A terrible, terrible reference. Terrible. Gosh, shame on me. But you know what I'm saying. I wish I
I
would have
do.
known it would be like a drug that like this, but in so much of the best of ways.
Yeah. I mean, as a 20 something, I have like, we said I have the type A. I'm a very addictive type personality.
Same, same.
And in my 20s, like if I had been, swimming and biking and running, or even just running instead of consuming alcohol like it was my job,
My God, Lynn,
yes, like,
do you know how many times I say that? I say, oh my goodness. I mean, like, where would my body would be like a totally different thing. Like, literally, in my 20s, I see people, there are people who talk about, that they knew when they were 20, they wanted to do X. I'm like, the
yeah,
only thing I knew I wanted to do when I was 20 was I just knew I wanted to hoist some beer. And
yeah,
that's what I wanted to do.
yeah. And,
You
and
know,
have a good time with my friends. Like that
that's
was
it.
all I cared about.
That's all I
So
cared about.
yeah,
I did not have a care in the world about any of this stuff. So I was like, I wish I would have found it so much sooner. Could have saved myself a lot of trouble.
yeah. And money too. Definitely money. Save money.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So, Lynn, if you had advice that you have ever been given, if there's advice you've ever been given, or if there is advice that you would like to give, what would it be?
Oh gosh. So I think the number one thing is just, you know, is to is to try.
Just try. Yeah.
Oh, I think that's the number one thing is like, don't be afraid to just give it a shot. Whatever it is, don't be afraid to give it a shot. And then, um, there are some things that keep us from, from, from doing things. And there are some real things like learning how to swim
Mhm.
and butt pants. Like these are some real things. However, I think a lot of times people in general, and especially women, we have a tendency to say things like, when I get to this point, or when I'm able to do this,
Yes.
then I will do this other thing. Then
Yes.
I will start running. When I lose 10 pounds, then I
Yes.
will start running. And
Yes.
I think that that would be the other piece of advice that I would give is like, if you're waiting for something, for X to happen before you do Y, then you're wasting the time in between. And
Mhm.
and so don't wait, because how you are right now
Mhm.
is really perfect.
Mhm.
So you don't have to be a different version of yourself to try something new or to get out for whatever it may be. Like accept the version of you right now today, and then, pursue whatever goal it is that you want to pursue, but don't wait because you think you need to check a certain box before you do something.
That's right.
Yes, I think that would be the advice. And
That's
I
right.
use that as the advice because I've just heard it on repeat, where people are like, oh, well, I need to do such and such before I can.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't think we need to do that. I think we can just
Agreed.
get it going.
Agreed. Agreed. Also, you hear, I often hear when I'm out running, I wish I could do that. And I always shout back, you could.
Yes, absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
absolutely could. Because I think that people, and women in particular, often have a tendency to want to compare where you are in this moment to where they are in this moment and think, oh, well, what you're doing right, like right now, is on the one hand somehow miraculous, right? It's like you're imbued with some kind of special magic sauce that
Yeah.
made you like this way. They don't realize that you started exactly, where they are, or you started in some place similar to where they are. And
Yeah.
all you did that was different was that you said what you said, which is you just got started.
Yeah. Well,
That's
I
it.
mean, we all have the magic sauce. Like we all have
That's it.
you
That's it.
know?
That's
So
it.
it's like, are you gonna use it or not?
That's exactly right. I think, that's exactly right. Like we all have the magic. I'm not like this special superhuman person just because I'm putting one foot in front of the other. It doesn't make it's there's no magic. The magic is in the work. That's the
Yeah.
magic right
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I think we know it. We all know it, but to make it full circle, like this is why it's so important that we do get out there, because seeing someone else doing it is what inspires someone to take the first step, or the first pedal stroke, or whatever it may be. So
Absolutely.
yeah, if you're thinking you want to wait, maybe relate it back to there's someone else who's putting it off as well, and if they see you, maybe they'll
That's right.
they'll get
That's
out
right.
as well.
You could be the catalyst for someone else to get out and do the thing. You could be that catalyst and be that person to inspire someone else. So why not just get started? Yeah. I love
Absolutely.
that. I love that. Lynn, thank you so very much for being with me today. I've had the best time chatting with you.
Yes, Pilar, anytime you want to Zoom over coffee, you just let me know, because this was lovely and
It
I'm happy
really
to chat
was.
with you anytime.
Anytime, anytime. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much.